I was foolish to spend time with him. I was one of many people who regret ever knowing him. Every minute I spent with him, I regret and I, apologize that I did that.
I also met Jeffrey Epstein exactly one time. I regretted it from the second I stepped in the door. I had nightmares about it afterwards.
So you're sitting down there having cocktails while Bill Clinton's getting a massage from some girl who's rubbing her tits against the back of his head, whether knowingly or unknowingly having sex with underage girls.
Everybody wants to be.
Maybe some guys, that was their thing.
Sure.
Because it seemed like with Epstein, that was his thing.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan just voiced what no one expected him to say, directly implicating some of his closest associates found within the Epstein files. The latest release of over 3 million documents, emails, and videos by the Department of Justice has exposed some of the world's most powerful figures as having deep connections to Jeffrey Epstein. Today, we expose the key players hidden within these dossiers.
It's so tangled. The whole thing is just, I think everybody who looks at it realizes this is a rabbit hole that just goes to the center of the earth. And there's so many people involved in that. Here's the big question that people ask. If there was a Jeffrey Epstein, and it seems like all these things he was involved in, is there a Jeffrey Epstein right now that we don't know about?
There's a million of them.
A million of them.
I mean, this is why I find this. This is not the core of what I focus on, but I find it a really interesting field of study because it helps understand so many other U.S. government institutions and the relationship between government and private business. Jeffrey Epstein is part of a class of what are effectively professional fixers, and this is a kind of class of professional who sits not really within a particular government or private sector institution, but in the kind of sticky layer between them that connects them all.
Just days ago, the Department of Justice unleashed over 3 million pages of records, nearly 2,000 videos, and approximately 180,000 images from various investigations tied to Epstein. Most of these records remain heavily redacted. Yet, despite obscured identities and blacked out names, once you piece together the fragments, it becomes clear that high-profile political figures, billionaires, CEOs, and even the British royal family maintained connections to Jeffrey Epstein long after his initial arrest. What is truly shocking is that these were not merely vague associations or fleeting encounters. The documents reveal flight logs, internal emails, contact lists, sworn testimonies, and video evidence that consistently position the same powerful names around Epstein for years.
You're telling me there's a place where they bring elites to compromise them with underage girls and they film them? Really? Like, what? Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Like, no, President Clinton's been there. Everyone's been there. Like, what? It sounds like nonsense. And not only is it true, but people keep getting fucking murdered for it. Did you see that latest Clinton advisor that got murdered? Got it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hung with an extension cord, himself in the chest, 30 miles from his house, and they're calling it a...
And now even Elon Musk is asking, where's the clientele list?
Yeah.
We should probably see who's been to that island.
Yeah, we should probably see who's been to that island.
Here's the twist. Joe learned about Epstein's island long before these revelations surfaced. According to him, Alex Jones warned him about Epstein decades ago, well before the story broke in the mainstream. Joe explained that Jones insisted something dark was transpiring on that island, claiming it wasn't just a playground for the elite, but a hub where powerful figures were being systematically compromised. At the time, Rogan dismissed it as lunacy. It sounded too extreme, unprovable, and frankly, too preposterous to take seriously. But looking back now, Joe admits that is exactly what renders this reality so chilling.
He was the guy who told me about Epstein's Island more than a decade ago, and I thought it was the craziest thing I'd ever heard. I was like, what are you saying? There's an island, like it sounds like a plot in a movie. There's an island where they fly famous rich scientists and politicians, and they compromise them with underage girls and get it on film so they could use it against them. I'm like, what? That sounds like lizard people. It sounds like, 5G creates COVID. Same thing.
Yeah.
But turns out it was true. And it's one of many things. He was the first one to warn me about a social credit score system. He's like, they're going to try to implement a social credit score system, and your money is going to be tied. They'll have centralized digital currency, and your money will be tied to your social credit score system, and you step out of line, you won't be able to buy things. You won't be able to travel. You won't be able to do anything. They're going to try to keep you within a 15-minute radius of your home, and they're starting to do that in places.
With this new release, however, the picture is beginning to crystallize, and the caliber of people involved is staggering. What is truly baffling is how many of these names were already circulating years ago, quietly whispered and quickly dismissed. Back then, the media framed them as mere coincidences or unproven associations. But with this latest batch of documents, those same names are resurfacing alongside concrete timelines, repeated contact, and undeniable links to Epstein's operations.
Chairman of a prominent law firm is stepping down over his association with Jeffrey Epstein. Paul Weiss law chair Brad Karp says in a statement, quote, "Recent reporting has created a distraction and has placed a focus on me that's not in the best interest of the firm." The firm says Karp will remain with the firm, just in a different role. Senior Washington reporter Will Staken is here for more. Hi, Will. So what's the latest on this growing list of prominent people facing scrutiny over the Epstein files?
Yeah, Diane, well I think, Mr. Karp right here is kind of the latest fallout from these Epstein files. Like you said, the really powerful law firm Paul Weiss announced that Mr. Karp would be stepping down after his name appeared in these files. Now, the law firm did not give a reason why Mr. Karp is stepping down, and previously the law firm denied Mr. Karp had any wrongdoing, but with this release of these files, his name appears in the files, mostly with his assistant trying to schedule meetings with Mr. Epstein. But there's an email between Mr. Karp and Epstein where he's asking about if he could help, get his son some kind of job in an upcoming Woody Allen film. So I think these emails, obviously are continuing to have fallout across, widespread industries. It's kind of the latest fallout here. We saw recently that popular wellness influencer Peter Attia also stepped down from his role at the protein company David.
Bill Gates is one of the figures facing the most intense scrutiny. A photograph of Gates posing with a woman whose face has been redacted was discovered in the files. Furthermore, emails between Gates and Epstein suggest Gates was attempting to conceal a sexually transmitted infection from his wife, following contact with Russian women. As soon as these emails became public, Bill Gates issued a statement calling the allegations categorically absurd and completely false. He also insinuated that Epstein was attempting to extort or defame him, citing a 2013 email that alleged he tried to provide antibiotics to Melinda in case she had also been infected.
Listen to Melinda. True that I was only at dinners. I never went to the island. I never met any women. And so, the more that comes out, the more clear it'll be that although the time was a mistake, it had nothing to do with that kind of behavior.
There we go. I never met any women. Wow, this is getting curiouser and curiouser, Esther.
Yes, it is. And unfortunately for Bill Gates, now he has to probably deal with the insinuation, at least for many people, that Melinda chose to divorce him and get herself out of that world. Also because of his association or his tenuous links, which he denies, with Jeffrey Epstein. The allegation that he presumably got an STD from a Russian prostitute that was associated with Jeffrey Epstein was actually written in a note by Jeffrey Epstein to himself.
One of the more intimate repercussions of this scandal is how it impacted the Gates dynasty. Melinda Gates has been very clear that Epstein's involvement was a catalyst in her decision to leave. She stated in interviews that the revelations were painful and triggered alarming concerns for her long before their divorce, particularly regarding Bill's judgment in continuing to spend time with Epstein after his conviction.
I also met Jeffrey Epstein exactly one time.
Did you?
Yes, because I wanted to see who this man was. And I regretted it from the second I stepped in the door. He was abhorrent. He was evil personified. I had nightmares about it afterwards. So, my heart breaks for these young women because that's how I felt. And here I'm an older woman. My God, I feel terrible for those young women. It was awful.
Individuals named in the files have cited the identical defense, echoing the same narrative, that Epstein was attempting to extort them. According to these accounts, Epstein allegedly amassed information, emails, and compromising material as leverage. On the surface, that explanation might sound plausible. Epstein clearly surrounded himself with powerful figures, and multiple witnesses have confirmed his penchant for documenting everything. But here is where the story begins to unravel. If Epstein was blackmailing all these people, the obvious question becomes, why were so many of them repeatedly meeting with him, and how did he secure such access? Joe has a compelling theory about how this was orchestrated.
Let me just get real and say,
if I gun to your head, what do you think your best assessment of what Epstein, who was Epstein, who was he working for?
well, I don't know, right? So I'm just guessing. Everybody wants to say he was working for the Mossad. He very well could have been. He could have been working for the CIA. He could have been a guy who was on his own, but also working with them, right? Like a guy that they used, but they never fully endorsed.
Like an asset?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a guy who could move money around.
Right.
He definitely...
Good at laundering money.
The moving money around stuff was very weird because he had money through no way that anybody could ever explain.
Yeah.
He had an enormous amount of money through no way that nobody could ever explain. Which, you know, if you're state funded, you're funded by Israel, and Israel's funded by America, and, you know, there's also NGOs and nonprofits, and there's ways to move money around where you can give this guy money.
Yeah.
So he was like... Weinstein, who is an economist, right? Weinstein's a legitimate mathematician.
Eric?
Yeah. So when Eric met him, his first inclination was he was a fraud.
He's a construct.
Yeah, a construct. And did he tell you the whole story about the girl sitting on his lap?
Yep.
So Epstein, while he's meeting with Eric Weinstein for the first time, has a beautiful girl sitting on his lap, and a woman. I shouldn't say girl. He said she was like in her 20s, and she's sitting on his lap, and he's bouncing around, so her tits are juggling around.
While he's asking math questions.
Yeah, talking serious. So he was obviously nerd fishing. He was fishing for nerds, and I think he caught a lot of nerds in that net.
Epstein wasn't working alone. One person doesn't suddenly forge intimate alliances with royal families across Saudi Arabia and England overnight. Are you telling me a mere financier somehow secured unfettered entry to royalty, heads of state, and billionaires without assistance? That is not how power works. Epstein didn't just stumble into these circles, he was strategically positioned there. Relationships of that magnitude are built through gatekeepers, intermediaries, and institutions that benefit from keeping certain people connected and specific secrets buried. Royal families do not socialize with random financiers unless a trusted entity vouches for them. And that is the most unsettling reality of this entire story. Someone from within the government was likely working with him.
There's a lot of those
100%.
guys that wound up going to that island. They probably thought, this is great. We get to party.
Nothing's free.
And they probably felt like they were rock stars because they get to hang out with the intellectual elite on an island with a guy who's just a billionaire philanthropist who's eccentric, who just loves women. He's a professed bachelor, and it all seemed too good to be true.
It's so true.
Because it was.
Yeah.
So I think he was an asset, whether or not it was for the Mossad strictly, or Israel strictly, or the United States strictly, whether it was a CIA thing, I don't know. But I think it was probably a part of a blackmail compromise effort.
Yeah.
Because those guys... there's a fucking dirty secret about these people that are in Congress, and they party, okay? They're regular guys and regular women, and they're in their 30s or 40s or whatever they are, and every now and then they do coke, and they get drunk, and they...
Human beings.
Remember that DC madam that had a whole book of people, and then she wound up committing suicide? She said, I'm not suicidal, and
See ya.
Yeah. Because there's probably a lot like that. And those kind of honeypot operations, they let these freaks know, like, hey, you're going to be safe with me. Charlie will take care of everything. Look, Bill Clinton used to come here. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And we're going to go to the
And
island.
that's a big endorsement. It's like presidents were here, so it must be a secure area.
Exactly.
I can get
we
down.
are on the island with Bill. This is fine.
And
We're
all these
fine.
girls show up, and you're like, well, this is Christmas in July.
Bill is really interested in string theory. He'd like to talk to you about string theory. So you're sitting down there having cocktails while Bill Clinton's getting a massage from some girl who's rubbing her tits against the back of his head while she's massaging him. He's like, hey, that's really interesting. Hey, I'm kind of tired. I'm gonna take a nap.
Another thing about black holes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they all thought that it was this lovely exchange of powerful people and brilliant people. And then they were just getting dirt on all of them. Guys cheating on their wives, guys, whether knowingly or unknowingly, having sex with underage girls.
Everybody
And
wants to be.
Maybe some guys, that was their thing.
Sure.
Because it seemed like with Epstein, that was his thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I don't think there's any evidence to either. I think it's all been, I don't think there was collected with that plea deal, and I don't think there's any list that's going to point to, there's no smoking gun. That's
I don't know about that.
I think it's all been, taken care of. I think that I think you could open up every file.
But that's the truth. Why did they have all those files? Why did they parade around with these binders?
Because
and
a
say,
lot of,
do you remember those
yeah.
photo ops that they said, like, look, they did like a thing. We have the Epstein files right here,
Right.
and they had binders. Like, what kind of political theater is that? If you don't really have the Epstein
It
files,
was
like,
probably
what is
theater. And what I mean by that is I think, like, if they are keeping something quiet, it's because it's video of underage girls, or it's video of the victims who don't want that to be out there. And the Justice Department cannot make that public. They cannot bring that to Congress. That's all sealed for their privacy, right?
Well, that is the argument. But then they're saying now that there are no files. They're saying there's no video.
I believe that. Don't you?
I don't know. I think they have video. I think if you've got an island and you want compromise on people, you can't just have hearsay.
I would say I would agree.
I watched him, that girl. Let's sue him. No, that's not how it works. You have to have video, and then you have to show it to the guy. Like, Mr. Clinton, have a seat.
Yeah.
This idea might seem implausible, but consider this. The latest Epstein file release has illuminated how deeply Epstein was connected to figures inside Donald Trump's influential inner circle. While Trump himself has denied wrongdoing and insists he severed ties with Epstein years ago, his name appears hundreds of times across the newly released documents. More notably, several of Trump's close associates, including Steve Bannon, Elon Musk, and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, are shown in emails maintaining friendly contact with Epstein years after his initial conviction. Elon Musk emerges in the new files primarily through emails from 2012 to 2013, discussing potential meetings, travel plans, and even a visit to Epstein's Caribbean island. One email reportedly captures Musk asking, "What day/night will be the wildest party on your island?" A query that stands in stark contrast to his earlier claim that he refused Epstein's invitations. The documents also hint that Epstein was maneuvering to position himself as a connector in Musk's social and professional circles. Musk insists the emails are being misread or selectively curated to disparage him. However, the inescapable truth remains. The files prove he knew Epstein.
And a top Justice Department official says the review of the Jeffrey Epstein files is over. The same official indicated there would be no new charges. Now the Trump administration is facing backlash from Epstein survivors and Democrats. This was California Congressman Ro Khanna yesterday.
There is a demand for elite accountability, but the survivors' lawyers that I've talked to have said that the survivors are still upset. They're upset that many of their names accidentally came out without redactions, and they want to make sure the rest of the files come out.
CBS News Justice correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins us from our Washington bureau with more on this. Scott, you've been sifting through as much of this as you can. What's in this so-called final batch?
It's a process. We're still working through millions of pages here, Errol. And it's worth noting these were released more than 40 days after the legal deadline for the Department of Justice to do so. No one besides Epstein and former associate Ghislaine Maxwell has been charged, but the Department of Justice insisting its work is done has only fueled more controversy.
Joe addressed this anomaly as well, the government's reluctance, bordering on fear, to release the files. He pointed out that if there were truly nothing to hide, the documents would have been released in a single comprehensive dump, clean and unfiltered. Instead, they have been released in slow, fragmented tranches filled with redactions, delays, and vague explanations. Even after Congress mandated the release, the Justice Department missed deadlines and admitted that large portions were still being withheld.
About the Epstein releases, like before we got started, first of all,
the photo dump and the emails, it's nuts.
But it's also they're doing it so slowly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you guys have had this stuff for a year. Like,
we were promised multiple times, it's coming.
Doesn't it seem like you could just throw all that into AI at this stage of the game?
Yes.
And just redact the names of the victims and let's go?
Yeah, of course.
It seems like that would take 5 minutes.
I mean, it feels like, you can't help but feel like the administration is just like watching their back, and that's why it's happening.
Watching someone's back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all speculative why they haven't released it, but it's not good. It's not good for everybody's confidence.
No.
It's not good that this thing was going on, that they had this bizarre blackmail operation running. That's very weird.
Very strange.
Very weird. But it kind of makes sense. Because if you're a 60-year-old billionaire and you're a freak and you like to get your freak on, but unfortunately you're a gigantic software developer and everybody knows who you are.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to get your freak on.
Well, that's the thing is, like, it makes sense when you go like, oh, some of these dudes really liked visiting that place.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the only place they can go.
Right.
You can't go anywhere else.
Right. And that's why they set it up for them.
Yeah.
Eric Weinstein said that to me once. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
If you're the former president of the United States, you can't go to a nightclub.
Yeah, he said, I think there are people out there that provide experiences for certain people that have a hunger for them.
Yeah.
I was like, of course.
Of course.
And that's also how they compromise people too, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's how they get you to vote the way they want you to vote and play ball. Bobby, we got video, you sucking a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
What do you want to do? Yeah. Because, like, I bet all those people have something on them. That's how they stay in the game.
They have to.
It's like skull and bones. You got to suck the dick.
Well, look at, like...
Otherwise, we can't trust you.
For the Epstein shit, like, look at the level of people that we're visiting. I mean, it's all at the highest level of influence, power, and fame.
Yeah.
And so you go, yeah, this dude wants to do some wild shit. He can't go to Cheetahs and get it done. You know?
Yeah.
You can't do it. He's got to go somewhere. Yeah. What sounds good? A private island.
Yeah. He can't just like order up a call girl.
It's too risky.
Where are you going? I'm going to Captain Billionaire's house to suck his dick. I do it every Tuesday. Plus, I'm on meth.
We are only scratching the surface of what is contained in those files. Joe even referenced the Pizzagate conspiracy theory, noting that once you pull at the threads, flight logs, private island visits, emails, and unredacted documents, patterns begin to emerge that the mainstream media has conveniently overlooked. The newest Epstein files have fueled renewed speculation regarding Pizzagate, thanks to nearly 900 references to pizza across millions of documents. While the theory was widely debunked after the violent 2016 incident at Comet Ping Pong, these emails reveal Epstein and his associates repeatedly using pizza and other seemingly innocuous phrases over the years. Some online communities interpret this as cryptic vernacular linking Epstein's crimes to something far deeper. Share your thoughts. Which revelations shocked you the most? And don't forget to like the video if you want us to keep breaking down every new detail as it emerges.